Yo, what's going on, snipers, and welcome back to our 2010 Throwback franchise mode with the Edmonton Oilers. So in last episode, if you did not catch it, we simulated some of year number 1, which obviously is the 09-10 season, and our team's kind of over-simulating, which isn't really what we were expecting this year, but we will take it. We are 22-11-1 at December the 20th, and it's been a really interesting season for this team. As you can see right now, we are 3rd in goals for per game, which is kind of a surprise based on our offensive core in my opinion. We are 12th in goals against, so not too bad in terms of defensive play. And then our special teams, like our power play, hasn't been good, but our penalty kill is 8th in the league at 88%. So everything's been kind of working out well for this team so far at this point, which is kind of interesting to see just because, like I said, I don't think our roster is really that much better than some teams on paper. I think maybe just some of these line combinations have worked out really well. Like, we obviously have an okay top line. Our second line's kind of more like a third line in my opinion, but I mean, Sean Horkoff's decent. He's actually listed as a second liner, so not a bad top 6. Third line's kind of solid, and our fourth line's a good fourth line, kind of grindy line. From a defensive standpoint, we're pretty solid too, I guess, in a way, because we do have 385s. A lot of other teams probably have weaker defensive cores with that. And then we also have decent goaltending, obviously, with Nikolai Khabibulin, who's been kind of falling off a little bit as of late, but you can see still in his season, he's been pretty good at some games, like a 923 there. These two games probably ruined his save percentage a little bit, but a 939 against the Red Wings and all that. So he has been pretty good this season for the most part. So I don't really know what to expect from this team in the second half of the season, because obviously we technically shouldn't be making the playoffs in this first year, but if we do make the playoffs, I don't think it's the end of the world, because at least it gives some of these guys, younger guys like Cogliano, Gagne, stuff like that, some playoff experience in the early stages instead of having to wait so many years. And then obviously then in the offseason, we could look to maybe move out some of the key pieces like Penner and all that, which we were thinking about trading guys like Penner and all that for maybe like Braden Holtby and all that, but I think it's probably best to just maybe wait a little bit and see how this team does the rest of the way, because we could still fall off quite a bit, but if this team makes it to the playoffs, like a little bit of experience in the postseason is not too bad at all. So anyways, with that said, let's get in you guys' comments now and get into those and see what you guys have to say, and then we'll simulate probably more the rest of this regular season in this episode and see if we actually do make the playoffs or not. So the first comment is from Ryan the Shark, who says, I suggest keeping everyone except Comrie, go for the playoffs and sell everyone in the off season. And yeah, that might be the play, is to maybe move Comrie and then everybody else we could sell in the offseason. A lot of the guys we were potentially looking at trading are signed for multiple years, so kind of makes sense that we could wait until the offseason to do so, because if we sort by years left here, the only ones on expiring deals that we'd potentially look to move away, maybe Patrick O'Sullivan, but he is a pending RFA, so maybe holding on to him is not a bad idea. Mike Comrie is the only pending UFA really that's important to probably trade away, because Aaron Johnson probably won't fetch a ton, to be honest. And everybody else is a lot younger, I think. So if we go to like the guys that are older than that, like Armstrong's not going to fetch anything. A lot of actually 1 year left deals as well, but like Fernando Pisani, like I said, still guys like this aren't going to fetch too much, so holding on to him is not really a bad issue for our team. But everybody else is signed for more than a year pretty much that we would look to flip away, like Throwback for instance, Ethan Morrow for instance, Dustin Penner, Sheldon Soure, maybe even Tom Gilbert, stuff like that. So I think obviously waiting until the offseason might not be a bad idea. The next comment is from Sauron Talgo, says, write out the good record so far and go for the playoffs now, then blow it up in the offseason. So another comment that's directed to actually trying to make the playoffs and then blowing it up in the offseason, which I agree with. Obviously, we're not going to look to add really any pieces just because obviously we don't want to give up too many assets. So I think kind of like staying pat with the current roster is mostly the plan. The next comment is from Max Herman, who says, I think you should try and make the playoffs first year and then maybe try to rebuild depending on how you do in the playoffs. Although this year's got a few great draft prospects, it is not overall good draft class. And yeah, that's true. That's the one thing that actually makes sense. So if we are actually going to be making the playoffs this year, this draft class has some good players in it, don't get me wrong, but it's not the strongest draft class in the franchise mode that it made. I'd say the strongest is probably the 2013 one with like Nathan McKinnon and all that. But yeah, obviously this year's draft class has some good players like Taylor Hall, Tyler Seguin, Vladimir Tarasenko, Mark Stone, or Timmy Panarin. But afterwards, you're looking at guys like Jeff Skinner, who's just a high overall top 6. You have guys like Cam Fowler. So there's some decent pieces for sure, but it's not like it's the most insane draft class on paper that we automatically need to find ourselves really good players here early on or not. So I think, obviously, we will still have some good first-round picks this year because we could trade away guys on our team for first-rounders, but we'll come to that when we get to the offseason. In the last and final comment is from Jared the Rabbit, who says, that was 6, same score, different guys. And yeah, that was pretty cool because we decided to do a slow simulation of the game he hypothetically went to back in 2009-10. And it ended up being the exact same score line, which is kind of interesting. It was on a different day, but it was very close to the same day too. So kind of a little neat little thing like that. So anyways, those were the comments we got in the last episode. So I think we'll probably keep our lineup the same. Obviously, stuff has been working well for this team so far. I'd like to see some of these guys that are younger start developing maybe a bit, like hopefully Brule gets a little bit of a shot up in overall, because he's been pretty solid this season with 19 points. So if him, guys like Patrick O'Sullivan, Cogliano, Gagne get better as the years go on, that would be very nice for this team, because they'd be pretty good like building pieces for the future, hypothetically. Also, maybe Ladislav Smid, but obviously he's only medium top 6 potential, so I don't expect him to get a whole lot better. And then goaltending-wise, I don't think Jeff Delory is really going to grow anything, so hopefully we get some growth in the system from Devin Dubnyk, who should be, hypothetically, our backup goalie next season if we do move away Heavy Bullen in the off-season. So with that said, I think we'll continue simulating, and we'll keep an eye out for AI trades going on this season. And obviously, I think we'll probably simulate the rest of the year in this episode. But if our team falls off a cliff or not, maybe a day before the deadline, we'll pause it at that point, and then we could look into some other actual trades if we actually have to make trades. But right now, this team's in a good spot to potentially make the playoffs. So let's keep it rolling, and let's go to the end of December. See what we do in these last 3 games of the month. So our first one against St. Louis on home ice. Chris Menard is back for the AHL, which is good news because he's pretty much like the best veteran player in that AHL team for the most part, I would say, or one of them. So we'll get him back in. This AHL team should be making the Calder Cup playoffs as well, which is a good thing too, based on how that roster looks. So hopefully some of the guys in the minors that actually have some potential could do well too. We shut out the Blues 4-0. Vancouver. We are going to win 6-3, and Anaheim, as our guy that I said in the last episode, could be a future captain in the AHL. Ryan O'Mara has been injured with a wrist spring in Springfield, so we'll go put on that. And we do lose in a shootout to Anaheim, but still a pretty solid way to end off the month. We finished 24-11-2, heading into 2025, or I should say 2010. So 50 points right now has us probably as a top 3 team in the NHL. Only be actually not a top 3 team. I'm forgetting that it's 6th division. I think we're like a top 10 team. Where are we in the standings right now? Like if we look at the Western Conference and Eastern Conference, not Eastern Conference, full league. Let's take a look at where we are in terms of standings, just because I'm kind of curious on that at the moment. So obviously in our division, we're number 1 by 1 point only on the Flames, but there's a huge gap afterwards. So we've been absolutely cruising so far. But if we go to the Western Conference, we are currently the 3rd best team in the West, only behind the Kings and the Preds. And if we look at the entire league, we are down at 5th, which is pretty solid. So let's keep it rolling. In terms of points percentage in the entire league, though, we are actually a top 3 team based on that. So we've played like the least amount of games, but we have a really good points percentage that we might be a top 3 team at the end of the season. All right, so let's continue to simulate. And like I said, we'll keep an eye out for AI trades. We'll probably look at the end of every single month coming up, just because this is around the time period you start to see some trades happen. I feel like it, though, with these throwback franchise modes, for some reason, a lot of the AI wait till the actual trade deadline to make any moves. So maybe we won't see anything here early on. But let's go to February 1st, see what we do in this month of January. We have 3 games against the Blackhawks this month. So there's some interesting games that we might end up losing. The first one we lose in overtime, but that's still a point against a pretty good Blackhawks team. And Jason Strudwick has been injured with an upper body injury. He's out till February 9th, so just over a month. Let's go replace player on that because that's only the top 6 pairing. Washington, we lose in a shootout, so we are going to the extra frame quite a bit as of late. There's a shootout win. 4 straight extra frame games, huh? And there's another one out for Carolina as we lost that one. Apparently, Chorney's back from injury, but I don't think he ever got injured, if I remember right. So we'll go continue on that. We do lose to Dallas 8-4. We lose to San Jose 6-0. Lose to Minnesota 4-2. Nashville 4-1 loss. Oh boy, is this the downfall of the team? We got to be careful here, boys. Pisani has been injured with an injured groin. It's only until the 31st. Let's go replace her on that. Ryan O'Mara's back for the Miners. That's good news. So we will take out, who was the scratch for Ryan O'Mara? I think it might have been Wiseman. Yeah, I think it might have been Chad Wiseman here. So let's take him out, put O'Mara back in. Perfect. But our team is starting to drop off a little bit, which is not ideal. So we might have to make some adjustments. There's a win over the Blackhawks, though. We still have a good record of 26-15-6, and we're still first place in our division. But we got to be careful not to lose that many games in a row if we do actually want to make the postseason, that is. So let's go to the 31st, see if we could do anything in these last 2 games of the month. First one against LA is a loss in regulation, and the last one is a shootout loss. So we have fallen down to 26-16-7, which has us second place now in the Northwest Division, only behind the Flames, and we're only 5 points up on the Wild at the moment. It's a little bit of a bad month for this team. But is it a bad enough month to set us to not maybe make the playoffs at all? No, it's not exactly. But if we go to Western Conference now, based off of points percentage, we have fallen down to the 6th best team in the Western Conference. And in an entire league, we were 3rd place. But now, based on points percentage, we have fallen all the way down outside to 10th, I think. So we got to be careful here because we could definitely still lose our playoff race. But at the moment, if we're looking at that points percentage here again, we are technically... wow. Nashville's already played 7 more games than us this season. So they have a lower points percentage, even though they're first place in the Western Conference. The Flames have a lower points percentage. They're in 8th or something like that. I feel like we don't have to worry too much because a lot of these other teams are quite far back of us. But if we look at like games played here, we have one of the lowest amount of games played in the entire Western Conference, which should hopefully help us with that playoff hunt. Nashville's played the most by 3 games, so they're in a little bit of a bad spot because of that. But let's keep on simulating. I know it's been a little bit of a rough patch, but we could make some line adjustments. But I don't know if we necessarily need to or not. Maybe we'll look into it a bit. I don't really want to see any player stats yet, so I don't really want to see which lines have not been doing good. Trying to think of what I could do here. Let's maybe get Cogs back to the 3rd line. Actually, Cogs is up to an 83. He's been good in a sense. Maybe it's just those injuries to Pisani and to Strudwick too have been a little bit of a downfall because we've had to play Chris Armstrong, and he's probably not been the best, my guess. But let's keep it the same. Gagne is actually up to an 85 now, so we might get people like Gagne and Cogliano to go really well for this team, which is very, very exciting. So let's keep on simulating and see if we could find our footing a little bit and get off the little bit of a schneid that we're on. Actually, let me take a look at the trades and see if there's been anything so far. I don't think there probably has been, but I'm pretty sure most of the time they wait till the actual deadline, which is kind of interesting. And that seems like it's still the case. All right. Well, I guess we'll find out at the deadline for the most part. And like I said, if this team's like around 500 at the trade deadline, maybe we want to stop the sim. Just because we obviously could still fire off some pieces this season if our team's not actually going to make the playoffs. So, but right now it still looks like we're going to make the playoffs unless we continue to fall apart. So let's go half the month at a time. So let's go to the 14th. See what we do in the first little bit of the month. Then hopefully the team continues to maybe find itself a little bit more so than it has in the last month. So we'll take out Stortini. Pisani will come back in. Maybe that's all we needed was Fernando Pisani to be back from injury, so he's back into the lineup. What the heck was that flip? Let me stop the sim because I don't know why it just did that. We did beat Atlanta, but we lost to Nashville. Nashville's played the most, like I said, in the Western Conference, so they still need to win more games going forward. We do lose 2 in a row there. We do beat the Kings. Okay, that's a good little win as Strudwick is back. Hopefully that helps us out a little bit with our defensive game a bit because obviously I think that's probably been lacking a little bit as of late due to the injury. But We don't want to go with Gilbert. We want to go with Throwback on this top 6 pairing. Perfect. That's good to go. Hopefully, the defense is now ready to go, and hopefully, since we're healthy, we could start winning some games. We lose to Colorado 3-0. St. Louis, we win 5-2. A little bit of an inconsistent episode so far for this team, but we are still finding ways to get to the extra frame a bit. We are still winning occasionally a couple games. Like, it's not the worst case scenario. Like I said, we don't necessarily want to make the playoffs this year, but if we are going to make the playoffs, at least it's not the strongest draft class in the world, so... We lose to Calgary in a shootout, but that's still a point, which is pretty valuable. Chicago, we win that game 4-3. New Jersey, we beat 1-0. And we got 3 more games left here in February before we're a day before the deadline, which is exciting. Colorado is going to be a shootout loss. That's still another point. Columbus is another shootout loss. Damn, we're losing a lot of games in the extra frame. And that is not the injury I was hoping to see at this point in time. Poor Gilbert Brule. He has fractured his left elbow, and he is out for a month. That's a pretty substantial loss because he has been playing pretty good as our third-line center. But now does that make our team want to bring in somebody new to the lineup? Who's better offensively, Nilsson or Pouliot? Because I could use Nilsson as a center. His face-off stats are actually pretty shit, so maybe not. But that might end up being a play. Or we put Pisani as the fourth-line center since he could actually win face-offs. And we'll just throw Stortini in here. But, oh boy, that sucks about losing Brule for that long. At least he'll be back for the playoffs. But he would have been on our power play likely, right? Yeah, so we are going to take Stortini obviously off the power play. Because Stortini just is not a power play player. You don't put an enforcer on a power play. You just don't. Who do I not have on the power play unit? Probably... Comrie? No, Comrie was on the first unit. Damn, I didn't even realize that. Who do I want to put on this unit? Hemsky's obviously on the power play already. Try to think of who I would want to put on here that isn't on there. Let's get Ethan Morrow on the power play. Sure. Since he's the captain of this team. Might as well give him a chance. And that will be fine. I'd rather Ethan Morrow on the power play for sure over somebody like Zach Stortini. Alright, so we do beat the Canucks in that last game of the month. So we are 32-19-11 a day before the deadline. Which has us in second place, only behind the Flames, still in our division. We also do have 4 games in hand on them, though, which is pretty insane. So at least we have the games in hand, because that should help us maybe win the division if we really want to win this division. But if we go to the standings again here, we are going to briefly see who's leading us in points, but that's okay. Which is currently Hemsky, not really a surprise, to be honest. So, if we look at the entire Western Conference now, how are we in terms of points percentage now in this Western Conference? Let's see. We are currently 5th place, so actually that's a pretty good little stretch for this team. A lot of overtime/shootout losses has helped us a bit, but we're in a pretty good spot right now based on points percentage. We just don't want to fall down below 58%, really. Like down to 54% where the Wild are. That would be our downfall. So we're in a pretty good spot right now, but we just got to be careful not to lose too many games in a row. So there's that. Let's take a look at our updated team stats as well while we're at it. See where we are in terms of goals for and all that. We are currently 10th in goals for, so our offense has fallen off a little bit in this episode, or quite a bit, I should say. We're still not too bad defensively. Our power play is still pretty trash. Our penalty kill is still top 10 in the league, so... The one thing that needs to be better probably is our power play percentage, but obviously we don't necessarily need to make ourselves as a juggernaut this year, so it's not the end of the world. I think we'll obviously keep this roster probably the exact same going into the playoffs, if we do make it, that is. And there still has been no trades so far at this point, which means they're definitely waiting till the trade deadline, so we'll probably jump into the trade deadline still just to see which players are out there and all that, but... Like I said, there's not really a reason for us to be actually adding pieces. It's probably just best to see what this roster could do in a postseason form, basically. Obviously, it's going to suck to lose Brule for a long time, but he will be back later this month, and maybe that will help us out with securing a playoff spot. So, I think we'll probably run this the rest of the regular season. Yeah, I just don't think there's anything that I really want to look into upgrading, and it's probably not worth it either with the price point. So let's still advance the day, like I said, into this trade deadline just to see what players are on the block, so to speak. And yeah, we'll see if there's any pieces I would bring in, but like I said, probably not going to bring in a player. So Mike Fisher's on the block, Thomas Caberlet's on the block, Anton Volchenkov. There's some pretty good veterans, but like I said, I don't have the value to bring in somebody like Tuukka Rask this year. I just don't. I would have to wait probably till he's a free agent, so it just doesn't make really much sense for us to offload anything that we currently have. Because even if we went to fine trade, I bet you they'd have like nothing for Tuukka Rask, and I don't think we need Tuukka Rask either. Because Devin Dubnyk could be just as fine as a starter, maybe in this franchise mode. So let's back out of this and see what trades went down at the deadline. I know it just said that Ottawa traded Anton Volchenkov, but I'm wondering what team he got dealt to, that is. So no blockbuster trades, apparently, which is kind of surprising. All right, let's take a look at those deadline deals for 2010, and then we'll simulate the rest of the regular season afterwards. But in terms of trades, what blockbuster trades went down here? All right, so the first trade, let's see what we got here. Viktor Kozlov, who was a free agent signing, gets dealt to the Detroit Red Wings with a third and a fourth. Dallas gets Thomas Tatar and Nick Jensen. So Dallas getting a couple prospects for a guy they literally signed as a free agent. Not too bad for them. Atlanta gets Michael Ryder, a third, and Jordan Caron from Boston for a third, and Todd White. So an interesting move there by Boston. I guess they're trying to make their center core better. And they get rid of Michael Ryder. Ottawa's acquired a second, a fourth, and Blake Jeffrey from Nashville. Nashville gets Matt Cullen in a 7th round pick. So Matt Cullen on his way to Nashville a little bit early because I think he did play there for a brief little bit. That is if I remember right, or maybe it's just him playing against Nashville in the Cup Finals that I remember. I honestly don't even know. I think he did play for the Preds, though. Pittsburgh acquires Zbigniew McCulloch in a 6th round pick from the Montreal Canadiens. How did he end up on the Montreal Canadiens? He must have got dealt 2 times at the deadline because he definitely wasn't on Montreal to start off this franchise mode. But he goes anyways to Pittsburgh. Montreal gets a second, a third, and Brian Straight. So Zbigniew McCulloch ends up in Pittsburgh where he actually played in real life. Not at this point in time, but very close to it. New Jersey gets Johnny Oduya back from Atlanta. That's actually kind of funny considering I'm pretty sure, was Oduya part of the Ilya Kovalchuk trade or was it a different trade? I'm trying to remember. Honestly, don't know. But Oduya in a 5th to New Jersey. Atlanta gets a 2nd and Alexander Vasunov. Let's see what else we got here. The Coyotes get Roman Hamrlik in a 3rd for Montreal. Montreal gets Matthew Lombardi, who's actually from Montreal, in a 3rd and a 6th. Okay, interesting moves there. New Jersey gets a 3rd rounder, and Garnet Exelby from Toronto. Toronto gets Adam Henrique and Vladimir Zharkov. Damn. The fact that Toronto was able to get Henrique in a deal for Exelby, I don't understand that trade value. I must have, maybe Exelby's having a good year, or there's 2 third-round picks are a lot of value, something like that, but that's a pretty crazy trade. Toronto at least gets themselves a good prospect for the future, because right now Toronto is pretty shit for the most part, aside from Kadri as a prospect and all that. But Adam Henrique, that's a pretty solid pickup for them. What else do we got here? Columbus acquires a 2nd, a 3rd, and Jonathan Bullum from Nashville. Nashville gets back Christian Huselius in a 6th. Okay. So Nashville loading up a little bit, which makes sense with where they are in the standings. The LA Kings get Dmitry Kalinin in a 4th from Columbus, who was signed as a free agent, for Thomas Hickey in a 2nd. Okay. Atlanta gets Derek Stepan and Dale Weiss from the Rangers. The Rangers get Maxim Afinogenov. Pretty good little pickup there for the Rangers. Atlanta gets some prospects. Rangers get a pretty solid player in Afinogenov, who actually left to the KHL after the 09-10 season. The Blackhawks acquire Robert Lang in a 7th, so Robert Lang on his way back to Chicago. And Phoenix acquires a 2nd and Jack Skilly for him. All right. Montreal got Zbigniew McCulloch from the Coyotes, so yeah, he was dealt multiple times, and the Coyotes ended up getting a 2nd and Ryan White in that deal. So Montreal basically brought in McCulloch, only to flip him to Pittsburgh. Kind of like a 3-way trade, if you would say. Not too bad there. St. Louis gets a 3rd, a 4th, and 2 others, which we don't know. For a 3rd, Mike Weaver and Brad Winchester. So Pittsburgh loading up a bit for a playoff run. Not a surprise at this point in time. Washington gets Adrian Aucoin from the Coyotes as well for a second, and Carl Alzner. So Alzner's on his way to the Coyotes. Geez, I can barely talk. The Coyotes definitely made a lot of moves where they offloaded players and got prospects and stuff. So solid work by the GM there to offload some good veterans. Florida gets Francois Beauchemin and a 4 from Toronto. So Toronto did offload another player from that roster. Did they get a good prospect in exchange? A second, a third, and Jeff Taff. I mean, it could have been a better return maybe for Francois Beauchemin, but a second and a third should net them some decent prospects in the upcoming draft. They honestly might be able to draft Zach Hyman in this draft with that second rounder too that they just got from Florida, which would be kind of funny. Considering Hyman was originally drafted by Florida, but then signed with Toronto as a free agent, I think it was. So there's that. And then a pretty big blockbuster, Anton Volchenkov off to Nashville is not huge, but the return for Anton Volchenkov is pretty substantial. Ottawa gets Matthias Ekholm, Craig Smith, and a 7th round pick. All right. So an interesting trade deadline. A lot of players getting moved. Definitely you could see which teams were offloading some good players and which teams were trying to add with the limited cap space they had, but kind of an interesting trade deadline at least. Zbigniew McCulloch getting dealt 2 times is kind of funny. Huh. All right. So there is that. Okay, I think we're ready to simulate the rest of the season and find out if this team is a playoff team or not. We should be, as long as we don't lose like 15 games in a row or something like that. The tough thing about our schedules, we do have 2 games coming up against San Jose, and San Jose has been pretty good so far this season, so those are going to be tough games. And it's a lot of Western Conference matchups too, so it might dictate the standings quite a bit here. But let's go to the 14th of March, see what we do in this first little stretch. Hopefully we can find ways to win some games, or at least lose in a shootout if we're going to lose. So we do get shut out by San Jose. Dallas is also shut out, so we got shut out in back-to-back games. Not ideal. Pittsburgh is a 9-1 loss. Holy crap. Okay, maybe the Oilers team is going to start to fall off. Schmid has been injured with his sprained ankle. That's unfortunate. We have to go replace player on that. And there's another loss where we only scored 1 goal as Petrie goes down in the AHL. God damn. This is not ideal. We do beat Dallas in overtime, but 4 straight losses, and we only scored 2 goals in those 4 games. We are kind of falling off a bit. We might end up missing the playoffs if we continue like this. Like, we're 5 points up on the Wild with 1 more game played in them. I don't know how that's going to impact the standings in the Western Conference right now. I should probably take a look at this because there's a chance we could end up missing the playoffs by a point or just barely making it at this rate. So if we go to the Western Conference here, sort off of points percentage. Yeah, see, we have fallen down to being the 7th best team in the West. And you look at the teams outside of it right now, Minnesota's the team that needs to catch up to us, basically. Anaheim's in that 8th spot right now, so we got to watch out for Minnesota, St. Louis, Dallas. Everybody else is probably not too worrisome. I don't know how the Canucks are doing that bad, to be honest, but not going to ask. But yeah, we got to watch out for these 3 teams, especially Dallas, St. Louis, Minnesota. If those teams start winning games against us, we might get into a worse spot. So we got to be very careful here that we actually still make the playoffs. If we miss the playoffs, like I said, it's not the worst case scenario. I was actually kind of hoping for that, but literally we are 16th in goals for. So it's kind of good that we didn't literally make any trades, because if we made any trades to make ourselves better, we might have still missed. Maybe the injury to Brûlé is holding us back a little bit. That could still be the case. But he should be back within the next 2 weeks or so. Let's go through a couple games at a time. Vancouver and Phoenix. We should be able to beat both these teams. Phoenix is below 500. Vancouver obviously is closer to the bottom of the Western Conference. Can we beat these 2 teams? Oh my goodness. Another injury, and it's for only 5 days, but Nikola Habibulin has been injured with an upper body injury. These injuries might cost us the playoffs too. So that means Dubnyk is going to come back up again to be the 1-2 punch with Jeff Delorier. Man, this team is definitely going to be a first-round exit if we make the playoffs. I could tell you that much. If this team somehow wins a Stanley Cup this season, I would absolutely be shocked. But Dubnyk will actually be in the NHL full-time next season, I think, if we find a way to get rid of Habibulin. But my God, This team has had some string of bad luck. We've lost a lot of games. We've been suffering injuries a lot in this episode. Definitely the hockey gods know that we actually shouldn't be a playoff team. We lose to the Canucks, and Smeed is back. That is good news, I guess, because it makes their defensive core at least a little bit stronger than playing somebody like Chris Armstrong on the top pairing. Damn it, I didn't want to do that. Boom. Let's go Smeed. That's good. Boom. And good to go. So we're still waiting on Brule and Heavy Bullen to return from injuries. Damn, we lost those 2 games as well. Oh boy. We are literally flirting with the chance of missing the playoffs at this rate because the Wild are now 1 point back of us, the exact same amount of games played. We might have fallen out of a playoff spot already too because there's other teams in the West, right? So we got to be careful here. I might honestly make some line adjustments, but at the same time, do we even care really if we miss the playoffs by 1 point? Like, yeah, I know you guys wanted to make the playoffs this year, but we have fallen down to the 8th seed in the playoffs. And yeah, Minnesota's the one team that's catching up to us right now at the moment on points percentage. God damn, that's kind of scary. St. Louis is still right there as well. Both of them are within 1 point of us. The Blues have one more game played, though. And then Dallas is a little further back. So St. Louis and Minnesota, those 2 teams could jump us here soon, which is not ideal. But if we miss the playoffs, we're going to get a tweener pick, which means we might get a still good player. But, oh boy. Do we want to make any adjustments? Obviously, Hemsky's been our best player I've been seeing. Aside from that, is there anything I want to change? I feel like that Brule injury is definitely what derailed us right now. I just do. Let's move Cogliano down to the 3rd line. Just try and get some more offense from Mike Comrie, maybe. And then from a defensive standpoint, we're going to put Gilbert on the top pairing with Souray. And it's going to be Witt and Schmid instead. And then goalies, Dubnyk and Delorier still. So we'll see if those guys could get us some wins here. But, oh my goodness. Actually, I want to get Sortini out of the lineup here, I think. Yeah, we're going to take Zach Sortini out of the lineup. And we're going to throw in Ryan Jones. I don't know if he's played any games yet this season, but we'll throw him in on that 4th line and see if maybe he can provide some offense for the time being. Holy crap, man. This team has been dreadful in the second half, though. Like I said, if we do make the playoffs, we're literally going to probably get swept or something like that. So maybe we don't want to even make the playoffs, but at the same time, we might as well see if we can. We do have a huge game coming up here against the Blues. This one could decide who ends up making the playoffs potentially too, because like I said, they're not too far back of us, so kind of scary. Kind of scary. We got to get Wild out of the lineup, and we got to throw back in Jeff Petrie. Hopefully he's NHL bound next season as well. So, because if he is, then at least we get some more good prospects in. But this is a big game. Winner of this game will take that last playoff spot for now, I think. Yeah, the Blues would jump us if they win in any capacity, so this is a big game. I would do it like an intervene and stuff like that, but this episode might be too long if I do that, so let's see. Who's going to end up winning this game? Is it us or St. Louis? It's in St. Louis, too. Can we win this game? No, we cannot. We lose 6-3, which means I think we have lost our playoff spot with not too much time left to go on the season. That's kind of scary. Plant has been injured with a broken nose. That's okay because he's not a huge prospect anyways. And Heavy Bullen is back, which is good for our NHL team. We are going to have to send down our boy Dubnyk. Is Heavy Bullen fully healthy? Yes, he is. Okay, good. So let's go to roster moves here and send down Dubnyk. I would keep Dubnyk up here over Delorier, but at the same time, Dubnyk might be getting a better chance down there anyways to go for a Calder Cup or something like that. So our NHL team is going to maybe get destroyed in this last little bit, so it's like, I'd prefer him playing in the minors probably for the rest of the year. And then next year, like I said, he could definitely be maybe even our starting goalie next year. There's a chance on that. So we'll go with that. That is good. And we definitely should try and hold on to Jeff Delorier for at least a little bit, just because he's still relatively young too. So, okay, well, that's not ideal. We have lost our playoff spot with only 11 games to go. The Blues have taken that spot. They have played 72 games. Wow, the Central Division might have a lot of playoff teams this year. 72. So they only have 10 games left. So the max amount of points they could get is 100 points. For us, obviously, we could get maybe 101, I think, still. So We need to win some games. We have a tough game coming up here against Calgary. Then we play a bad Thrashers team. We should be able to beat them. We have the Rangers, and that's going to be maybe a tougher game. Tampa Bay, kind of similar boat. Dallas is a tough one. Dallas has come back and done a really good job in the second half of the season too. So, oh boy. Okay, well, let's go 2 games at a time. Calgary and Atlanta. Can we take back our playoff spot from the St. Louis Blues? Calgary. We win 4-1. We also beat Atlanta 5-4. That's 2 good games in a row. We probably have taken back that playoff spot. We are now 3 points up on the Wild with 1 more game played. And the Blues are 1 point back of us, the same amount of games played. This is going to be crazy. Right down to the wire probably this season. With how we started off the season, I thought we were obviously going to make it for sure. But the way we've been playing in this episode has been very weird. A lot of those shootout losses could come back to bite us potentially too. Rangers and Tampa. 1 home game, 1 road game. Can we win either of these 2 games or both of them? As Sheldon Sewer has been injured with an injured shoulder. Oh boy. Of course, our best defenseman goes down now with an injury too. We're going to go replace player on that, but oh my goodness. And Brule is back from his injury. This has been a really weird episode, man. We have been absolutely bombarded with injuries this year. At least in the second half. So we'll get Brule into this part in the lineup. We'll obviously put him back on that second power play unit too. So we will go with O'Sullivan back at the point again. And we'll take Ethan Morrow back out for Brule. And get him in there. Perfect. That's good. So now we're just waiting on Sheldon Sewer, which he's out for a little bit at this point. But still, that's a pretty substantial loss for our defensive core. We did beat the Rangers, so 3 straight wins. That's huge for our team. Can we beat Tampa? The answer is yes, we can in a shootout. So 4 straight wins. That actually is absolutely huge at this point. That might get us to clinch soon. We do have Dallas and Phoenix to wrap up March, so Landis will go through them too. So Dallas, tough team. Can we beat them? The answer is no, we can't. We lose 7-2 as Alex Plant is back for Springfield, so we'll get Plant back in. Man, it literally still could come down to the wire with our playoff scenario. But at least those 4 straight wins could help us a lot in terms of that playoff scenario. So let's see if we can get that playoff spot locked down. We do have Phoenix before Sewer will be back. We are 2nd place in our division. Can we beat the Yotes? And Petrie's been injured again in the AHL with a strained hamstring. Let's go replace player on that. And Sheldon Sewer is back, of course, as we said. But did we beat the Yotes? That's the one thing I'm wondering about right now. Last time we played them, it said it was a 6-1 loss. So hopefully the boys figured it out a little bit with beating them. So boom. And the answer is yes. 3-1 win. Nice. We have not clinched yet, but we probably are very close to it, I would assume. Like I said, I still think we're going to be a first-round exit of a team because we're wildly inconsistent. But if we look at the standings now here, and we go to Western Conference on points percentage. Detroit's the only one that's clinched at this point, which is kind of insane. It's this late into the season. We are still in 8th place, but we have 89 points. Dallas is only 3 points back of us, and they have a game in hand. So that's actually kind of scary. But we're also only 1 point back of Anaheim, 1 point back of LA. So if we don't lose a good chunk of games in a row, we might be in a good spot. But we are still barely holding on to that playoff spot, which is kind of scary. So it's probably going to still come down to the wire with the playoff scenarios and clinching and all that. But let's not lose more than 1 game in a row. Let's just not do that. All right, so we got Anaheim 2 times left this season. We got San Jose once, and then we got Ottawa and Carolina, so 2 Eastern games. Can we beat the Anaheim Ducks here, who is actually trying to get that playoff spot from us, or one of the playoff spots from us? So this is another substantial game. It's a team we're trying to catch up to or pass in the standings, and they're trying to hold on to their spot. So these are big games against Anaheim. The first one on home ice, can we beat them? We lose 7-3. Oh my goodness. Wildly inconsistent is going to be the title of this episode, probably. Oh my god. This is going to come down to the wire. Okay, Ottawa and Carolina. Another home game, and then we have 3 straight road games to end the season. Can we beat the Sens in our last home game of the regular season? The answer is no, we cannot. How are we in terms of standings now? Those 2 losses in a row are absolutely dreadful at this point. Absolutely dreadful. Like I said, we have not clinched yet. And if we go off points percentage, we're outside of the playoffs again. Literally just by 0.1% right now. We need Dallas to lose some games here. We absolutely need them to. But, yeah, we're falling out of a playoff spot barely. Like, we have it right now, but it's literally going to come down to the last little bit. We need Dallas to lose some games here coming up. We just need to. And this game against Carolina is huge for us. So let's go back to headlines here for this game. And we'll put Cogs back into the top 6. And we'll see if Cogs could be a difference maker up there. Oh my goodness, this is stressful. I didn't realize we were going to have this tight of a race at all. I could put Nilsson down the middle, but it doesn't make much sense. Trying to think if there's anything I want to adjust. Let's get Smead back to that top pairing too. All right. Well, the question is, are we going to lose this game and hurt our chances at the playoffs even more so? Or are we going to find a way to win this one and jump back into that playoff mix? I know we're in a playoff spot right now, but if Dallas wins any game coming up, it's not very good for us. So, can we beat Carolina in Carolina? Get redemption for the 06 Cup Finals? No, we can't. We lose 6-0 in regulation. Oh my goodness. If we win the draft lottery this year, that would be nice. But, man, this team is really strange, man. I was expecting playoffs this year, but at this rate, we might not be. We've had an absolutely disastrous second half of the season. Points percentage, let's take a look at this again. Yeah, we're not in the playoff spot anymore whatsoever. Because, yeah, based on points percentage, we have fallen down to 10th, I think. And if you look at just points, we are in 9th. We're only 1 point back, but we have 2 games left. Dallas has an extra game. And same with all these other teams. They all have an extra game. So we need some of them to lose, and we need to win our last 2 games, basically, or else our playoff chances are gone. This is insane. I thought we were literally going to make it, because we literally had, to start this episode, I think we had a 22-11-1 record, and we have fallen to 39-30-11, which means I think we've gone like 17-19-10 down the stretch, which is absolutely abysmal. A lot of regulation losses. I don't even know what to say. Let's go ahead to the Anaheim game, because maybe Dallas will have already played another game by then, but this is not good, man. We might get eliminated from playoff contention here soon, as Cody Wild's gone down with an injury in the AHL. At least he's not a good prospect anyways. The AHL team has failed to make the playoffs too, which is unfortunate. So the AHL team, even though, like I said, their roster is good, they decided to miss the playoffs this year. Probably the injuries hurt them a little bit too. But let me take a look at this here quickly. Let's see what we got here. Got to go on points percentage again just to see if Dallas has played any games. The first 5 playoff spots are locked up. Dallas still has 2 games. They are still 1 point up on us. But they're also exactly tied with Minnesota. We have way less regulation wins and ROW. We might be very close to being mathematically eliminated. But all 3 of these teams are tied on points percentage. But the one thing that separates them is the ROW. My God. I don't think there's going to be much of a chance unless we win these last 2 games and these teams all lose against each other or something like that. I don't even know if they play each other. But holy moly. Okay, well, we're going to slow simulate these last 2 games, or at least this last game, or this next game, just to see if it makes a difference or not. Anaheim's a team we're trying to catch to, so if we could beat them, this would be pretty huge for our team. It's in Anaheim. Obviously, they got a good team, so I don't really expect us to win this, but let's see what we could do here in this game. First period. 3-0 Oilers. Okay, good start. Cogliano, Penner, and Penner, so 2 former Ducks, basically. Or one of them was a former Duck at this point in time. One was a future Duck. So pretty good start. 15-7 are shots. Second period. Still 3-0. Good. And third period. 6-0 final. Okay, that's a good offensive performance from the boys. Patrick O'Sullivan made it 4-0. 2 power play goals. Gagne and Comrie. and we take that game in Anaheim 6-0. Is it too little, too late? Is the question. Hard to say, but oh boy, this is scary. Aaron Johnson's losing morale due to ice time, and Jason Strudwick has been injured again. The amount of injuries we've had in this part of the season is actually kind of insane. But with that win, the Ducks we can't really jump over. Let's advance one day just so we can kind of see what's going on with this scenario, the playoff scenario. Let's see. Let's take a look at the standings, see if we're back in that playoff mix or not. So if we go once again to the Western Conference with one game to go, we are in that 8th spot now. We are in that 8th spot. Dallas still has 2 games left though, which is not good. Because if we win the next game, Dallas would basically have to win their last 2 games or at least get 3 points. Minnesota only has 1 game left as well. St. Louis' season's done. So these are the 2 teams we need to worry about right now. It's Dallas and Minnesota. And if we win this last game, that gives us a higher chance. If we lose this last game, Dallas or Minnesota is probably going to take it. Probably Dallas. Oh my goodness. This is a long episode for only just being a season simulation episode, but goddamn. We had to make it dramatic here, huh? Let's advance a day and see if Dallas played any of their games here or not. Let's see what we got. Okay. Did they play another game? I know I'm making this really climactic. Let's see what we got here. So every playoff spot is locked up. It comes down to this last game. We win this last game, we make the playoffs, I think. Maybe. Actually, no, not guaranteed if we win this. I know guaranteed, actually, because Minnesota and Dallas both have 1 game left, too. So if we win this last game, get 2 points, we take that playoff spot. We lose this game, and Dallas or Minnesota wins, they take that last playoff spot. So it's down to game 82. Can we clinch a playoff spot on the last day of the season? It's against the Sharks, too, have been bad as of late, and they have barely clinched a playoff spot. So we might be able to win this, but the Sharks do have a good roster. So let's do a real-time simulation of this last game of the season and see if we can clinch that last playoff spot. Will this Oilers team find a way? Will we find a way into the postseason? Come on, guys. You got this. Just build off that last game. Last game against the Ducks was fantastic. It was a nice 6-0 win. Let's find a way to just win this game too. And like I said, we will obviously take a look at player stats and stuff like that. Wrap up this regular season regardless. We probably, if we do miss the playoffs, we probably won't look at the... maybe we'll look at the playoff bracket and awards and stuff like that still. It might be a little bit of a long episode, but I know some of you guys like these long episodes anyways. So, scoreless after 1. Let's see what happens in the second period. See if we could break the ice. But so far, a little bit of a quiet offensive game so far. Sharks open first. Of course, it's Danny Heatley, who could have been an Oiler at this point in time if the Sens would have traded him to Edmonton. Dustin Penner makes it a 1-1 game, though. Penner's been good as of late, so that's good to see. Final few minutes of the second period, and it will be tied at 1 going into the third period. If we could get a point even in this game, it'd be huge, but obviously taking 2 points would be absolutely huge for this team's confidence. So let's see what happens in the third period. Can we get that lead? Come on, boys. I know Hemsey's got some clutch goals in him, right? Or he should at least. Sean Horkov, what about you? What about Sheldon Souray? Or maybe even some random dude like Aaron Johnson. I don't really know. Hey, Dustin Penner again. Pancakes and Hemsky scores. That's 3-1. And that's 2 big goals. Your Edmonton Oilers are going to clinch the playoffs with the last game of the season. I'm pretty certain on that. So that's a huge, huge win as Dustin Penner in the last 2 games. Absolutely fantastic. We find ourselves, I think, in the playoffs despite having a very strange episode. Yep, we clinched that playoff spot. That's huge. That is a huge win on the road. Whew, that was a really weird season, man. Let's advance so we get every team done in terms of simulation. Petry's back for the AHL. That's good news, but the AHL team's not even in the Calder Cup playoffs, so it kind of sucks too. Because I was hoping we'd get some of the younger guys playing in the AHL playoffs this year. So go with that. Boom, and that's good. But we've made the playoffs in game 82. Just barely. Just barely. By the skin of our teeth. We had a really good start to the season, but we finished 41-30-11. So not a pretty season, but still a decent one. At least early on, I should say. But if we go to the entire Western Conference, it came down to the wire. Dallas did win their last, or not, they didn't win their last game. They got 1 point in it. Minnesota lost their last game. We ended up winning, so we technically had as good of a record as the San Jose Sharks in terms of points, which is kind of insane. So we barely make it into the playoffs as that 8 seed. That means I think we're probably playing Detroit first round, which means we might get absolutely clobbered. Unless we do what Edmonton did against Detroit, I think in 06. Didn't Edmonton play Detroit in first round of 06 and go to the Stanley Cup Finals that year? I gotta take a look at that because I might be wrong. Maybe I'm thinking of Calgary. Stanley Cup playoffs. Let's see. I gotta look at the bracket from the 06 playoffs. No, Edmonton did beat Detroit that year in 6 games. Huh. Yeah, that would be interesting. That would be interesting. If that is who we're playing, which I honestly don't even know. I'm not too sure if I set it up properly for the 1 versus 8. I hope I did. But, yeah, anyways, the best team in the entire NHL was the Washington Capitals, led by Ovechkin, of course. Not a surprise. Goals for per game. We weren't even up there in the top 9. I don't even know where we are. New Jersey was the best offensive team, which kind of is a bit weird. But we were all the way down here in our offense. So our offense kind of fell off a cliff in the second half of the season. Goals against per game also fell off a cliff because we were right here. But the best defensive team was the Sharks, despite us beating them in the last game of the season. Power play percentage, not a great power play, I guess. The LA Kings had the best power play. Best penalty kill was Pittsburgh. Our penalty kill, I honestly don't even know where it is. Most short inning goals was Pittsburgh. All right, so let's take a look at some stats here for our team. See who led us. Obviously, there is Alex Hemsky. Good year for him. But starting off, Sam Gagner had a fantastic season. 75 points in 82 games. 16 goals, 59 assists. So that's a big first year for Sam Gagner. I'm hoping he can continue to produce like that, because if he can, maybe he's going to be an Oiler a lot longer than he was in real life. Sean Horikoff had a solid season, 64 points. Cogliano on 48 points, minus 10. Ugh. But still 48 points is good from Cogs. 40 points from Comrie. We were maybe thinking about trading him, but I decided just to hold on to him for now. He's not gotten a lot of value anyways, so he should be fine. Brule on 34 points, not too bad. 70 games, he did miss 12 of them due to injury. Pouliot on 22 points. So some solid production, but the plus minus on Comrie is a bit of an issue. So maybe I should have flipped him away because he's a bit too offensive, but that's okay. Left wing side of things, O'Sullivan on 30 goals and 61 points. Do like that season from Patrick O'Sullivan. And also really like this season from Dustin Penner, 30 goals and 53 points. So maybe those guys will have a little bit more value this offseason. Morrow on 23 points, including 15 goals. Not bad. Nilsson, 14 points. Ryan Jones only played 4 games. Had an assist. Right wing perspective, there's Hemsky on the 33 goals, 85 points. Imagine being over point per game on a team like this. Damn. Pisani, 20 points. Stortini, only 1 goal in 13 games, 16 penalty minutes. Did he fight it all in those 13 games? He should have, right? The answer is yes, 2 times. Not a surprise. He should have probably fought more than that, though. Defensively, Sheldon Souray, 55 points, 79 games. He was obviously our best defenseman. That plus minus is really good, too, for his team. Tom Gilbert, 39 points. Not bad. Whitney had 26. Mead had 13. Johnson, 9. Strodick, 7. And Armstrong, 6. Okay. Goaltending. Hebby Willen had a 904. Delorier had an 892. Ugh. Not the best for Delorier. And definitely a lot of drop-off from Hebby Willen. He is 37 years old now, so he could still retire early on to this franchise mode. So definitely a guy we should look to flip this offseason. In terms of stats around the league, we'll briefly take a look at this as much as possible, but I know that you guys probably are like, hey, this episode's like close to an hour long, but I have had to clear my throat a lot of times, so it doesn't really matter, I guess. But best point getter this season, Anze Kopitar, 128 points. I don't know what's going on in LA, but damn, Kopitar had a huge year. Mike Modano on 106, and then you had Daniel Sedin on 104, Brad Richards on 101, and Ryan Smith on 100. Also, shout out to Ryan Smith. Somebody mentioned in the comments about maybe bringing back Ryan Smith at some point. I don't know if we'll be able to unless he starts dropping off a lot. He does have a no movement clause that LA would have to get to waive as well, so the chances of him coming back to Edmonton are probably slim, unless he does hit the free agency in a few years and doesn't retire. Best goal scorer this season, Zach Parise beat out Alex Ovechkin. Interesting, 60 goals this season for him. Ovi had 57, Kopitar on 56, Iginla on 52, and then Stahl and Semin hit 50. So, two players on that top line in Washington had a 50-goal season, but they didn't hit 100 points. So the Capitals are looking pretty deadly. And then also Backstrom's up there with the 79 assists and 95 points. Yeah, that top line in Washington, absolutely filthy. Best defenseman in terms of points this year is going to be Andrei Markov, 85 points, beating out Drew Doughty, who had a good year. Brian Rafalski up there as well. Okay. Best goalies in terms of wins this season is going to be Jimmy Howard in Detroit. Most shutouts by a goalie. 10 shutouts from Tim Thomas this year. Also, how do you guys like the goaltending numbers? I want you guys' opinions on the goaltending numbers because obviously we could adjust the scoring and a shot frequency, but looks like Tim Thomas had a really good year. And he was by far the best starting goaltender. Afterwards was Evgeny Nabokov. So, I don't mind those results, to be honest, in terms of his goaltending. Like, it's kind of crazy that Tim Thomas was that good, though. So, shout out to Tim Thomas and the Boston Bruins. Yeah, I don't mind these goalie numbers, I don't think. Okay. Most goals by a goalie. Any goalie goals? Nope. Most assists? 4 from Ray Emery. All right. Best rookie, obviously, is going to be Broken, so we won't even take a look at that. Who was the best AHLer in terms of points, too, for fun? Sergei Shirokov, 83 points. Colin Fraser, 74. Sean Poole, 72. Okay. What about best goalie in the AHL? Actually, best defenseman first. Sulzer. Alexander Sulzer. Best goalie, Jonathan Bernier in terms of wins, but save percentage by a starter. Maybe you're looking at Drew McIntyre in Chicago. Or Alexander Salak in Rochester. All right. So there are some AHL stats as well in case you guys were interested. All right. So the question is, who are we playing in the first round? Is it Detroit? I'm pretty sure it should be Detroit, but I honestly don't know. Let's take a look at this and see. And the answer is going to be yes, it is Detroit. Okay, so I did set it up properly. Good. So we will be taking on a very tough Red Wings team, obviously, in real life at this point. This would be their third straight playoff, or not third straight playoff trip. Last few years, they've made it to the Stanley Cup Finals in a row. So this would be their third year going to try and get back to the finals again. Who knows if they could get past the Blackhawks and all that, but this is going to be a very tough matchup. I don't feel like they made any trades at the deadline, really, though, if I remember right. But they still should have a really good roster, of course. In terms of comparison, I think we're going to get literally slapped around unless we cheese them. But they were 5th in goals for, 5th in goals against, 4th on the power play, and 11th on the PK. So their PK is pretty similar to ours, but aside from that, they have a pretty good roster in terms of stats, 5-on-5 and all that. So, let's see what we got for Detroit. First line, Zetterberg, Datsuk, and Bertuzzi. Crazy. I'm surprised they're not using Datsuk as the winger over Zetterberg, considering Datsuk actually plays left wing, but still, very good top line, of course. Second line has Johan Franzen, Valtteri Filppula, and Dane Cleary, former Oiler. Third line, Drew Miller, Chris Draper, and Thomas Holmstrom. And a fourth line of Kirk Maltby, former Oiler, as well as Darren Helm and Patrick Eaves. Oh boy, that right wing side's a little bit on the weaker end of right wingers for their team, but it's definitely stronger than ours. Their center depth is pretty solid. Their left wing depth is very good. They could also have injuries, which I'm not too sure about. Defensively, obviously, this is definitely the focal point here. How are we going to score goals against a defensive core like this? If we cheese them, I'm going to be kind of surprised. But Lidstrom and Rafalski, top pairing is absolutely filthy. Maybe the best pairing in the league. Stewart and Kronwall is a great secondary option. Eriksson and Lebda on that top 6. And then from a goaltending perspective, Jimmy Howard and 37-year-old Chris Osgood. That is quite the team. And then in terms of depth options, they do have Andreas Lilia, they have Jason Williams, and they also have Victor Kozlov, who they did trade for. And he did play 7 games with them after playing for Dallas earlier on in the year. All right. So Viktor Kozlov is their only major depth option other than Lilia, I guess. That's a good team, of course. I don't really think we have an answer, and I don't think we really should have a chance against them. But since we barely made it into the playoffs, maybe our team has a good chance this year. But going up against like a team like this for our first ever playoff run is going to be quite tough. But at least it'll give our team something to learn about is how you play in the playoffs and basically what it takes to go up against a championship caliber team like the Red Wings. So anyways, guys, that's going to do it for this episode of Edmonton Oilers Throwback 2010 Franchise Mode. So in next episode, we'll take it to our first ever playoff run against the Detroit Red Wings. We'll see what this team could do. I kind of hope we're a first round exit, but at the same time, as if this team goes on a tear for no reason, I'm okay with it, but it will be interesting to see how our team learns from a series like this against Detroit. Like I said, Detroit's a good veteran team, and it's a good team to kind of take on early on in franchise mode because definitely will show us where we want to be eventually once our team starts developing and we start getting in some good prospects and all that. So anything down below, and I'll see you guys next time.